all of a sudden these rookies that we remember coming in, they're vets. He is an established guy on this defense. But, yeah, part of that 2022 class that now it is a pivotal final year of their rookie contracts. So it's going to be interesting to see Boye Mafe in year 2 of this defense and year 4 for him. But, yeah, I mean, we'll talk about our mini camp observations because we did see a good chunk of stuff happening out there. They're wrapping up right now. But isn't it kind of crazy to think that 2022 draft class so instrumental in getting this team back, getting them to a playoff spot that year when they were drafted? Now there are decisions to make. You know, guys like Abe Lucas and Ken Walker and Boye Mafe and Reek Wolhen, and we keep rattling off all these names. There are a lot of guys that were instrumental to building this team back up, and now you have decisions to make.
Yeah. I mean, and we'll see who ends up, who they end up re-signing and how they value these guys. But yeah, I think Boye, I thought he was going to have maybe a little bit more of like numbers. I thought he had a great year, but I thought his sack numbers were gonna go up and everything. And and that doesn't mean he played poorly. It was just that I love watching Boye, and I think the main reason is because, especially like during his rookie year, he just was so steady as far as improvement. Like every game he got better and better and better, and you'd see something happen in one game and like, that was a mistake, and then you'd see him fix it, and he's just very thoughtful player and an incredible athlete. So yeah, I mean, I think, you can't have enough pass rushers. I know that's what John Schneider always says. And, he's kind of a combination of, and I remember when they had Darrell Taylor here, I thought he was more of a he had a lot of pass rush moves. Mm-hmm. And then you got a guy like Derek Hall, who's just pure power. Same thing with Uchenna. And I thought Boye was kind of a blend of those two. Like and that's what you want. You want a repertoire where the tackle or whoever's blocking you doesn't know if you're going to try to run him over or put a move on him. And that's the best type of pass rusher. So to me, he's the best pass rusher on the team.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. And, it was interesting to watch him out there today. When all these guys go through their individual drills, for most of the early portion of minicamp, you're doing special teams, receivers are catching balls off to the side, but the edge rushers and the defensive linemen, they really get to work. They're hitting the sleds, they're doing drills there, and watching Boye Mafe kind of intersperse between first DeMarcus Lawrence and then Derek Hall, as you were mentioning, the three of those as those kind of key edge rusher guys, and just seeing how they interacted with each other. There was some friendly competitiveness, and then Boye Mafe was also getting a little bit of coaching from Lawrence and from Leonard Williams. So to see that experience, you're talking about a defensive line all of a sudden where you brought in DeMarcus Lawrence, and Leonard Williams is the key cog in all of that, and now Boye Mafe is becoming more of that veteran as well. So
you bring up something.
I like the depth on there.
Yeah, and you bring up something I think is interesting, and a lot of people don't talk about it, but you said how they're kind of sharing information. And,
Mm-hmm.
There was a couple of guards that got on the All-50 team for the Seahawks, Brian Millard and Edwin Bailey. And during practice, those guys taught me so much. It's kind of like a hitter going to the pitcher and saying, hey, how would you pitch me in this and that? And I just remember particularly Brian Millard, would tell me different things, and we would talk, and then every once in a while he'd go, he'd say, that was a good move. And you'd be like, oh, yeah. But, I mean, that very, very much does go on out at practice. And when you have guys that are that tight and they exchange information and things like that, it just makes you better and better. So I so appreciated Edwin Bailey and Brian Millard because, it's kind of a little game in there. It's like, it's not super complicated or anything, but it's like, okay, do I run this guy over or do I try to put a move on him, and how do I set him up and things like that. And so that kind of information is just priceless. So yeah, I'm glad you saw that, happening with those guys out there, because everybody's got a different style, and especially having DeMarcus Lawrence come in here from another team. And I think it's that's really interesting. And that's when you have a good team, when guys are out there talking and sharing information.
Well, my first observation about DeMarcus Lawrence was he is wearing number 0. That was strange to see him wearing that. And then I noticed how they were working together. But that's the first thing that jumped out, honestly, is 0. That number. Yeah, on a defensive guy, on an edge rusher, it does really jump out at you because Lawrence cuts such a big presence. He was wearing the visor out there. He's on the edge, so you can really see just how big he is. But yeah, the way all those guys were working together was one of the more fascinating parts that I kind of picked up on. We kind of missed the end of the team portions. We saw a little bit of that as we were coming in, but they were getting into the 11-on-11. So be curious to hear how that went with Boye. But yeah, and like you said, I'm curious to know who he then talks to on the other side of the ball. Since you were talking to those guards, I wonder who on offense he picks their brain and who he learns from about his moves and what to counter and
I'm
all
sure
that.
Charles Cross and Abe Lucas, but I mean it was interesting to watch how I'm just blown away with Mike McDonald's practices. There's so much talking out there on the field, and they're going through things, and it's just a different style, and I'm not saying one is better than the other. I happen to like this one better, but they take their time out there. And for Pete, it was just reps, and then we'll go look at it on film. Whereas Mike McDonald is just, we're going to correct it here on the field. And, you just see a lot of downtime in that regard. But I think Pete was like, okay, we're wasting opportunities. Let's, get as many reps as we can, and we can fix it on film. Whereas here with Mike McDonald, it's like we're going to fix things on the field. And it's just a matter of preference, but I really like that part. There's not the blasting, blaring music, and look, I think Pete liked to practice with a lot of juice, and he wanted enthusiasm and things like that. But I think for Mike McDonald, and I remember before the Seahawks hired Mike McDonald, I remember talking to John Schneider, and he said, we want teachers. We want a teacher here, and those are the kinds of coaches that we want. And that's one of the reasons why they kept Carl Scott, who's a defensive back coach, because he's just amazing. If you ever look up on the internet, there's
the teaching video. I think
it was some kind of a coach's clinic or something, and he was up, and there was a video running, and he's explaining everything, and just an amazing guy from that standpoint. And like, he was just spitting the words out. It was like so second nature to him. So I mean, those are the kind of guys that they have here. John Benton, and he has a different style. I told you that he's out there going, that's not even close. He's walking around going, no, yes, this is better. That's not even close. So he's doing all that stuff out on the field, and it's just interesting. It's a different philosophy, but it also is one that I think makes sense.
So it sounds like practice just wrapped up. We will have Boye Mafe in here any minute. We'll talk to him about that defense, about DeMarcus Lawrence and working with Mike McDonald, everything that you just mentioned there. Anything else kind of stand out to you at minicamp today? I know that you and Bob got the opportunity the past couple of weeks to be out here at OTAs. So kind of just, the culmination of the past few weeks, what has really stood out? Outside of what you just mentioned, obviously, but anything else that's jumped out to you?
Yeah, watching the offensive line, and I was making a comment out there to Dave Pearson that there's lots of drills that they do that I don't ever remember seeing. And I mentioned fumble recoveries from offensive linemen, which that's going to happen. So you might as well prepare for it. I mean, obviously it's a negative thing, but, we don't want to be fumbling. But, there's lots of times where you'll see offensive linemen pounce on the ball, and the ball comes spurting out and goes everywhere. And so, just there's a way to pick up a fumble. It's almost like you slide next to it and then cradle the ball. And so, I saw them working on that. But then this wide zone concept, which I think is going to be really effective if they, can perfect it. But I saw these drills where the offensive linemen are just almost sprinting like sideways. So,